Great. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to our second 55 by 25 Summit, supported by Lafayette General Health and SLEMCO. I'm Natalie Harder, and I am the Chancellor of South Louisiana Community College and Chair of One Acadiana's Board of Directors. And this is Jim Bernard, Executive Director of Manufacturing for Stuller, who is having a slight panic attack because we didn't start at 10:45. We also serve as One Acadiana's co-chairs for workforce and education, and we'll be your co-MCs for the summit. We're really excited to celebrate our 1 year of Regional 55 by 25 Educational Attainment Initiative and to kick off year 2.
One Acadiana serves 9 parishes across South Louisiana's region. All 9 are represented here today. Our vision is to be one of the most high-quality, sought-after regions in the South for enjoying a prosperous career in an idyllic family environment. To advance this vision, One Acadiana's new 5-year strategic plan set 5 goals. Number 1, attract and retain high-paying jobs. Number 2, ensure regional infrastructure investments. Number 3, strengthen Acadiana's workforce and attract new skilled talent. Number 4, enhance Acadiana's quality of place and business environment. And finally, number 5, connect and support businesses locally and regionally. Today's summit puts a special focus on goal number 3, talent development and educational attainment. You will hear from education officials, business leaders, and national partners about economic and moral imperatives for increasing educational attainment and how we can work together toward this common goal. We will conclude with an overview of our 2 strategies and a specific call to action for employers.
Before we get into the program, we want to take this time for some special introductions. We're honored today to have education leaders from across the region and state joining us, including Dr. Kim Hunter-Reed, Louisiana's Commissioner for Higher Education. Dr. Joe Savoie, President of UL Lafayette. Dr. Kyle Smith, Associate Vice Chancellor and Dean of Students for LSUE. Judy McCleary and Kylie Schmaltz of Sewella. And a number of our K-12 public school district superintendents, including Darwin Lazard of Evangeline Parish, Carrie Lavitlette of Iberia Parish, Kurt Crater of Jeff Davis Parish, Irma Trosclair of Lafayette Parish, Patrick Jenkins of St. Landry Parish, Al Blanchard of St. Martin Parish, Brad Prudhomme of Vermilion Parish. Thank you to our superintendents today. Also, Holly Boffey, District 7 Representative and Vice President of Bessie. And looking around the room, I see many other higher education and K-12 partners appreciate that you're here and can be recognized. We also have One Acadiana board members and other business leaders, not-for-profit leaders, and public officials with us. Thank you for being here today. And we're very excited. Not only did we exceed the number of people that attended last year's inaugural summit, but we sold out and had to tell people that they'll have to come next year. So you guys got special tickets. And last but not least, today's events would not be possible without our supporting sponsors, Lafayette General Health. Would you stand? And so we can thank you. And SLEMCO, would you stand? And thank you for your support.
This time last year, One Acadiana kicked off our 55 by 25 initiative at our inaugural 55 by 25 Summit with about 100 stakeholders from across the Acadiana region. This year we have about 160, so a 60% increase in attendees, so thank you all for being here. In introducing the initiative, it was important to first articulate the need or the statement of the problem. At the heart of the need is the economic imperative for increasing educational attainment. The Georgetown Center on Education and Workforce projected that as of this year, 65% of all jobs require some sort of post-secondary education. What's more, the center found that 95% of the jobs created since the Great Recession have gone to those with at least some college education. The economic imperative for increasing educational attainment was reinforced by One Acadiana's target industry strategy, a study completed by a regionally recognized economic development firm, Garner Economics. The study noted that, increasingly, the level of education of a community's population is becoming a decisive factor in economic competitiveness. Firms understand the need to operate in economies that offer a sufficient supply of workers that meet or exceed their requirements. They also know that the lack of an educated workforce can significantly impact business performance.
Also in the study, Garner Economics conducted some benchmarking analysis and measured the Acadiana region against other areas. The level of education of Acadiana's working age population, adults aged 25 and older, was lower relative to all other areas that we benchmarked against. In fact, in terms of the percent of adults with an associate degree or higher, Louisiana ranks 48th as a state. And within Louisiana, Acadiana ranks in the bottom half, 5th out of 8 as a region. For those of you who have seen this before, you know I'm going to say it again, right? Louisiana is 48th, and our region is 5th out of 8th. Now more than ever, there is a growing sense of urgency to focus on educational attainment. For many years, the blessings of the oil and gas industry, where you could earn a good living without a post-secondary degree, created an environment where higher education was desirable but not necessarily essential. And as our regional economy evolves, more of our population will need post-secondary degrees and high-value credentials to equip them for good jobs and good wages.
Based on the latest census data, released just last month, 25.5% of Acadiana's adults aged 25 and older hold an associate degree or higher level of education. This number, however, does not include other high-quality credentials like post-secondary certificates and occupational licenses, which can, of course, be just as valuable as an associate or bachelor's degree. Illumina Foundation estimated that additional 13% of our working-age population has one of these non-degree credentials. That means about 38.5% of adults in Acadiana has earned either a post-secondary degree or another credential of value.
And so the good news is that that number has been increasing, and based on the current trend line, the number will continue to increase to 43% by 2025. But we know that we need to do more, and we've got to improve that trajectory in order to prepare our workforce for the jobs of the future. In looking at the goals of other states and regions, we determined that an ambitious yet feasible target for the Acadiana region would be to increase that number to 55% by 2025. That leaves about a 12 percentage point gap to close.
With such a big goal, which encompasses the full cradle-to-career journey, we wanted to identify some key performance indicators or milestones along the way. You can see some of the guiding questions we asked and the key performance indicators we identified on this slide. With these guiding questions and indicators in mind, we asked, and the key performance indicators we identified on this slide, with these guiding questions and indicators in mind, we built an online dashboard which allows anyone to explore the data with user-friendly, interactive data visualizations. The dashboard will help us better understand the data and track our progress over time. You can check out the dashboard, which we call the Acadiana Education Dashboard, on your smartphone, phone, or other device at 55by25acadiana.org/the dashboard.
In a few minutes, we will hear from Louisiana's Commissioner of Higher Education, Dr. Kim Hunter-Reid, who will talk more about the data and how our 55 by 25 initiative fits into Louisiana's new master plan for higher ed. But first, we want to acknowledge some of the highlights from our first year of the 55 by 25 initiative. At your places, we have provided a year one report with an overview of activities related to our 4 focus areas for 2019: kindergarten readiness, 3rd grade reading, high school to college transition, and credential completion. Thank you to all of our partners on each of these focus areas.
And it really is remarkable how many great things are happening in Acadiana to improve educational attainment. While I wish we had time to talk about all of them, we did want to honor a couple of individuals and initiatives that deserve special recognition for their leadership over the past year. These are individuals and initiatives that are accelerating progress toward our 55 by 25 goal. In that spirit, we're establishing a new award, the 55 by 25 Accelerator Award.
And we couldn't decide on just one recipient. And because Jimmy and I served dually as co-chairs representing the Partnership of Education and the business communities, we will be giving dual awards, one to an education community partner and one to a business community partner. First up, the 55 by 25 Accelerator Award for Leadership in the Education Community goes to one of our K through 12 superintendents, Superintendent Patrick Jenkins of St. Landry Parish Schools. Come on up, Superintendent. Superintendent Jenkins has been proactive and innovative in improving the transition from high school to college and career. As just one example, he recently launched a new collegiate technical academy, which offers students the opportunity to earn college technical diplomas in a variety of programs while on a high school campus. This academy just launched this fall, and more than 200 students are already enrolled, all of whom are eligible to earn a technical diploma the day they graduate from high school. Since being appointed superintendent in 2016, Superintendent Jenkins has continued to lead St. Landry Parish forward. And here are just a few of the other school district's accomplishments from the 2018-2019 school year. 8 of the schools in St. Landry Parish were recognized for top grades by the Department of Education. 928 students earned industry-based credentials, and I think we heard an update this morning where he's actually nearing about 2,000.
Wow.
And 5,000 Chromebooks were purchased to equip every kindergarten through 3rd grade classroom. Please give a round of applause for an education community leader so deserving of this award.
We'll do a picture over here. Over here. Just like it was hard to choose one education community partner for this award, it was also hard to choose one business community partner. So we'll recognize a group of business community partners. These leaders with the faith-based organizations Love Acadiana stepped up in a big way this year to transform 9 public schools in the North Lafayette Parish through targeted resources, volunteer service, and positive inspiration. This initiative, the Love Our Schools campaign, and I hope you heard about this, resulted in a groundswell of community support, raising $1.3 million, engaging 3,000 volunteers, providing backpacks and uniforms to 5,000 students, and donating even more to the schools and their 750 teachers and staff. Some of the key business leaders involved include Dr. Kip Schumacher of SCP Health, Matt Stuller of Stuller Inc., Nick Pugh of the Pugh Family Foundation, and Bob Giles of Giles Automotive. Thanks to all of you. However, the vision would not have become reality without the tremendous leadership of Ryan DiMaggio, CEO of the William C. Schumacher Family Foundation. If you haven't heard Ryan speak about this initiative, you're missing out. If you haven't heard him speak, you haven't participated. Since Ryan is a triathlete, we thought we'd use a sports metaphor here. Ryan was the captain of the team and the strength behind pushing this initiative forward. Thank you so much, Ryan. In addition to these business community leaders, we also want to recognize the leadership of the faith-based community, including Pastor Jacob Aranza of Our Savior's Church, Cindy Delaney and Amy Spidell of Love Acadiana, and the entire team from 8 Days of Hope. Their tireless efforts ensured the Love Our Schools Serve Day on August 10th was one of the most transformational days in Lafayette Parish Schools history. Please give a round of applause. Let's give one more round of applause to Patrick Jenkins and the Love Our School partners.
As we enter year 2 of the 55 by 25 initiative, we will continue to push for progress on our year 1 focus areas: kindergarten readiness, 3rd grade reading, high school to college transition, and credential completion. But for our 2nd year, we will be focusing in a new way on a special population, a population that is often overlooked in the world of education: adult learners.
When we think about college students, most of us envision 18 to 21-year-olds fresh out of high school. But consider for a second the following data provided by the Lumina Foundation. Nationally, 37% of college students are 25 years old or older. In Louisiana, 29.2% are 25 or older. 24% of college students have children or other dependents. And 64% of college students work, with 40% of them working full-time. Clearly, our perception about college students must evolve to include students who are older, more diverse, raising families, and working.
Many of these students are also struggling. Consider for a second this additional data from Lumina. 31% of college students come from families at or below the federal poverty guideline, and the majority of college students, 53%, come from families at or below twice the poverty level. Think about that in Louisiana. 36% of college students reported not knowing where their next meal was coming from, which is why Acadiana's 2 largest colleges, UL Lafayette and SLCC, have both established food pantries. And 9% of college students reported being homeless in the past year. Clearly, we must recognize that food insecurity, housing insecurity, and poverty are affecting the college experience and completion for many of today's students. And because of this, we are proud to partner with a team of state officials led by Louisiana's Commissioner of Higher Education, Dr. Kim Hunter-Reid, on a grant from the National Governors Association to develop shared strategies for helping adult learners navigate these barriers.
To tell us more about the grant and how this work fits into Louisiana's new master plan for higher education, I'm honored to introduce Dr. Kim Hunter-Reid. A Louisiana native, Dr. Reid was appointed Louisiana Commissioner of Higher Education in 2018. Prior to being named Louisiana Commissioner, Dr. Reid served as Executive Director of the Colorado Department of Higher Education. Working with the Colorado Commission on Higher Education, Dr. Reid led efforts to drive increased educational attainment and erase equity gaps. Prior to that, she served in President Barack Obama's administration as Deputy Undersecretary at the Department of Education. She also served as Chief of Staff for the Louisiana Board of Regents and Executive Vice President of the University of Louisiana System, among other distinguished positions. In this role, she led the Board of Regents to set its own educational attainment goal for Louisiana, 60% by 2030. Part of the Board of Regents' new master plan called Louisiana Prospers. And if imitation's the highest form of flattery, Dr. Hunter, thank you for following up 55 by 25 with 60 by 30. Dr. Reid is a wife, proud volleyball mom, and Louisiana's chief advocate for talent development. Without further ado, please welcome Louisiana's Commissioner for Higher Ed, Dr. Reid.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Jim and Natalie, for that introduction, and T-Joe and Blake for the whoop whoops. I appreciate it very much. It is wonderful to be back with you this year. Last year, I stood at this podium as you kicked off the 55 by 25 Summit, and congratulated you on this work. And so I'm honored to come back in year 2 to thank you for your steadfast commitment. We are especially pleased with the work that you're doing because you are the only region in the state of Louisiana that has set an attainment goal. Yes. We need to make sure that in a state, you heard the statistics, where 1 in 5 people are in poverty, a state where half of our working population of adults have a high school diploma or less as their highest educational attainment level, a state where we want to make sure more of our children have opportunity and where your geography does not determine your opportunity, We need more regions of the state doing what you are doing, bringing over 160 people together, K-12 and higher ed, and workforce and economic development, business leaders, state officials, superintendents, all thinking about, talking about, working together to ensure that Louisiana prospers. So I want to first congratulate you on your commitment and say that we stand ready to work with you. I'm delighted that Blake David, who is a member of my Board of Regents, one of my bosses, is here today. And I thank him for his leadership and his tremendous work. Of course, I'm delighted that Dr. Savoy is here as well. As you know, he was a mentor to me. And so if you think I'm doing a good job, you can pat him on the back. If you think I'm doing a bad job, he was my bad influence. So I'm happy to talk a little bit about, first, I'll mention the grant briefly. I want to share with you briefly where we are with our strategic plan following the great 55 by 25 with our 60 by 30. And then, so happy to have the conference continue. As was mentioned, the National Governors Association put out a request for proposals to governors of the states to ask if they were interested in participating in work to think about how to improve education to employment. And so it was a $100,000 grant. Louisiana was successful. TJ was on our work team, and we had a grand vision. Others here from DCFS and others were here as well. We had a grand vision originally to try to work in every region of the state to try to move the work forward. But as we continued to have the conversation, we said, why not go into the one Acadiana region? It is primed for this work. In so many ways, you have diversity, equity challenges, very rural communities, an opportunity to work with SLCC, the only community college in the state that houses the WIOA workforce development work. Certainly you have the strength of the UL Lafayette campus and a commitment of an entire region to make a difference. And so we thought it was a great match to have this opportunity to leverage this grant to think about how to support adult learners. And as was mentioned, you're talking about people who are trying to squeeze a little bit of education and training into life, complex lives, business, some people working 3 part-time jobs, trying to take care of kids, food insecure, housing insecure, all the things that come with poverty, and our acknowledgement that poverty is a barrier to success. And so the grant allows us to work with the phenomenal team at One Acadiana, but to bring together the people that you see at some of our regents' tables, governor's office, DCFS, and others, to try to figure out how do you leverage resources, federal and state and local resources, towards one end, completion of a credential that will be life-changing for individuals and their families. And so we want to think about what do TANF dollars and SNAP dollars and child care dollars, all of those things mean when it comes to helping individuals to get where they want to go. Pathways from poverty to prosperity. And so we're going to test that work in this region of the state, figure out all the warts and all, and then share it with other parts of the state as we try to move the state forward. Because we know this. You cannot have just a great slogan and a great logo and magically educational attainment happens. You have to get under the hood. You have to ask what's happening in various communities. You have to look at your data. You have to say, who is left out? And how do we help individuals to solve the challenges so that they can get where they need to go? The big experiment in Louisiana is this. We know that the number one reason, the most likely reason that students will have a college credential is if their parents have a college credential. And so for us to say we want 55 by 25, 60 by 30, means that we are going to push against a narrative that exists all over the United States of America. We're going to say in Louisiana, regardless of race or place, you will have an opportunity to reach that unlimited potential because you will have an opportunity to reach an education and training that will make a difference. It is an experiment that we all need to lean into, that I know you all are committed to doing. But it is a reality in no place in this country. Right now, the correlation between your family's income and your family's education level tells us everything about your likelihood of getting a credential. And so this is significant work. It's special for our states and our families and our communities, but it will make a difference in this nation. And so that's the work that we're committed to doing with all of you, rolling up our sleeves, getting this work done. So with that, I want to share a little bit about where we are with our strategic plan. Let's see. Okay. The on button helps. All right. So first I want to share a very short video, and then, like I said, I'll walk you through our strategic plan that our board has adopted. You have copies on your table, no quiz at the end, but I wanted to share a little bit about how we're thinking about making sure that Louisiana prospers.
When I was in 8th grade, I got an assignment to go home and talk to my parents about what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so when I got home, we talked about it, and the best thing we could come up with was something in the hospitality area.
We didn't have a lot of money, and I didn't know if I would be able to put her through college. I worked in a gas station pretty much all since she's been in school. It's really hard to dream what's possible because of the area that we are in. I knew that she could do great things. I just didn't know how to make it happen.
In order to ensure that we erase the attainment challenge, that we erase the equity gap, we have to erase the belief gap.
Then I went to high school and I met Ms. McIntyre, and she really pushed me to move forward with going into healthcare and, more importantly, going into nursing.
And Ms. McIntyre really did step up, and she helped me as well as her. See that there was a lot that can be done even if you don't have it all.
Regardless of your zip code, regardless of your race or place, we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to reach that unlimited potential. And we know that education is the way forward.
When she walked across that stage and she graduated, it was the most beautiful thing I could have ever imagined.
We need to make sure that we're saying to every student, we believe in you, we know that you can do amazing things, your state needs you and your talent.
It's our responsibility to help develop that talent.
We don't want to just set a vision, we want to make sure that we get there. Louisiana prospers when we get this right because of our education, our innovation, and our collaboration.
The Louisiana Talent Imperative.
Developing
talent, so Louisiana prospers.
Developing talent, so Louisiana prospers.
So every time I watch that video, I think about the Miss McIntyres in our lives, right? Someone who said to us, you can do it, and who believed in you even though you didn't believe in yourself. And so how do we make sure that every child, young or young at heart, gets that experience of having someone who believes in you and pushes you and helps you to meet that goal? And today, obviously, we have celebrated two groups of individuals, the superintendent, Jenkins, and the Love Our Schools group, because they're accelerators of attainment, right? Cheerleaders for talent, cheerleaders for our students. And so I want to join you in congratulating them for being out there making a difference each and every day. The Board of Regents, and I'm proud to serve as commissioner of the Board of Regents, but really our focus is trying to make sure that we are a voice for talent development. We are promoting and talking about the importance of education in our state that's affordable and equitable and attainable for more people. And so we have our megaphone that we're talking with governors and legislators and stakeholders and everyone, because we need to make sure that people understand that education is an investment. It's an investment in our future, and how do we make sure that we have a choir of people talking about that and moving that forward? So that is the work that we are delighted to do. As I mentioned, Blake David is one of our board members, but our board, when we developed this strategic plan, basically said we want to do more than incremental change. Our vision is bigger than that. We have an audacity of high expectations vision for Louisiana. Not just incremental change around the edges, but a bigger vision that involves more individuals to make sure that talent is developed and that opportunity exists in our state. And so There is, within the document right at the beginning, a list of all of our board members and their signatures on this vision of what they want to see us do. As the video mentioned, we want to make sure that we get there, and we have a big goal. We want to double the number of credentials in the state of Louisiana. Currently, we produce about 40,000 credentials a state in public and private institutions in Louisiana. Getting to 60 by 2030 means that we have to double the number of credentials. More people who have access to certificates and certifications, associate degrees and bachelor's degrees in our state in 11 short years, or 10 short years now that we are in 2020. So that's significant. But where are we now? If you follow sort of clockwise around this chart, you will see that currently Louisiana is at 44% educational attainment. And we're delighted to have our friends from Lumina here because we look at their reports that come out to talk about where we are. So about 44% of our population in our state has a credential beyond high school. Nationally, 47.6% of the individuals, working adults or adults in the nation, have that credential. We have urgency in this work because about 96% of Louisiana's workforce are from Louisiana. So the workforce we have is the workforce that we are going to develop and that we are going to invest in. So you see the Georgetown Center numbers. We are already lagging in terms of what they think are the number of credentials that will be required in Louisiana that require a high school diploma or more. And as you see at the bottom with the light bulb going off, 85%, a staggering 85% of the jobs by 2030 have not even been created yet or imagined. And so when we think about talent development, we think about foundational skills that will allow individuals to not only succeed in that first job, but to rock the 5th job and the 10th job as well. And how do you build on those skills through pathways? We think that also is very important. In terms of challenges, obviously you can't achieve it if you can't afford it. And so one of the things that has been a barrier to success for more and more families is the issue of how do I pay for the pathway that I need? I have students talk to me all the time who say, Dr. Reed, you say that this is a necessity, not a luxury, but you price higher education in America as a luxury good. And so how do we make sure that individuals who are in charge of our budgets at the Capitol, across the nation, and in our state understand that when you price individuals out, that means less people will have an opportunity to be taxpayers, to support their families. And we know that the benefits of education mean individuals are healthier, they're more likely to contribute, they're least likely to be incarcerated, they're less likely to need public services. And so we need to invest in the vibrant Louisiana that we want to have, that we want to leave for children and grandchildren. And so that means we have to address the finances of our higher education community. The orange dot is the tuition and fees. As you see in 2009, basically 70% of the cost of going to college was borne by the state of Louisiana. Now we have basically an invert of FY 2019 of about 67% of the cost of going to college being paid for by students and families. And so when you think about a talent development goal, you have to make sure that people can afford the goal, and you have to think about other factors that are barriers that we are creating that are keeping people from getting there. So if you can't afford it, you definitely cannot achieve it. And so we have to think about how do we message the importance of that as we head into a new legislative session and welcome new legislators to the Capitol. We also looked at other challenges, environmental challenges around the state. I had an opportunity to visit every campus in the state of Louisiana in my first 8 months or so on the job, and walked every campus, talked to students, talked to administrators and faculty, business leaders, and just had a good opportunity to scan the Louisiana environment as a girl who's happy to be home. I saw 3 challenges. 1, access and success challenge. Not enough traditional high school students going on to college, not enough college students finishing what they start. So how do we address that? Second, equity gaps. Louisiana is not unique in this way, but we are a state that has the lowest African American attainment rates in the nation, according to the Ed Trust report that came out. So how do we make sure that we are pushing against these equity gaps? And there are gaps, obviously, by race, but also when we think about poverty and we think about urban and rural, the conversations have to occur, who's being left out and who does not have the opportunity to reach their full potential, and how do we address those issues? So we have to get rid of these persistent gaps that exist. And then we have to make sure, as you all are focused on right now, that we are addressing our adult population. As I mentioned, when you think about a knowledge economy where a credential is a requirement, and you square that against a population where half, 47% of our adults have a high school diploma or less, you recognize the challenge that we have in Louisiana with how many people that will be left behind. When every job will be a STEM job, when you go to big box stores now and there are no people, you scan your own items, right, to go on and pay for things. And so what is happening is people are displaced, and how do we think about upskilling and reskilling individuals who may be left out of an economy that is evolving and moving very quickly? So we have to lean into that too, and I'm delighted that year 2 of this summit is focused on adult learners, because there's much that we need to do for that population. But I will also say this, and our board has said, the audacity of high expectations means you have a broad vision for talent to be developed. So this is not just a K-12 to higher education exercise, although that is important. This also is an exercise that reflects every individual on this map. So when we think about talent to be developed, we think about first in their family, first-generation students. We think about veterans. We think about single parents. We think about justice-involved individuals. We think about foster youth and opportunity youth. We think about rural and urban communities as well. Every individual on this map and the groups that they represent are talent that we must develop. When I think about the equity gaps, lots of people will say, tell me, what does that look like? So here's an example, and I know Ken Bradford is here, one of our strong partners in K-12, that has helped us to gather some data. So here is the leaky pipeline that exists in Louisiana. It's a challenge throughout this country. If you're in the orange, you're one of 100 ninth graders that are excited to start school. 78 will graduate high school of the 100. 45 will enter college immediately after graduation, but only 18 will earn a credential out of 100 ninth graders in Louisiana. If you're an African American high school student, ninth grader, excited to head into high school, 73 will graduate high school. We lose 60 students, only 40 will enter college, and 9 will earn a credential. This is the reality that we have to change in Louisiana. 18 is unacceptable, 9 is horrific. And so what do we do to make sure that the talent pipeline keeps everyone moving forward, that there's relevance, that there's rigor, that there's affordability, that there's equity, so that real opportunity exists for more people in our state? That's work we have to do. So how do we do that? We looked at a number of policy opportunities, and we basically have said there are 3 pillars to this work. We have to educate, we have to innovate, and we have to collaborate. And under these, you see a number of policy options. One of them is dual enrollment. The idea that K-12 is an extension of post-secondary education is an important one, because we graduate 40,000 students a year in higher education, but K-12 in Louisiana graduates 45,000 students a year. So if more high school students graduate with a credential, an associate degree, an industry-based certification, that means that more and more people are off to the races. And so I'm delighted that I had an opportunity to hear what's happening in St. Landry, just phenomenal work from people who are passionate and just really making it happen. And I know that there are other superintendents in this room as well that are doing phenomenal things. And Holly is here as well. And so I know that the Board of Regents, Blake is here, and Holly, the Bessie Board, set a goal at our last joint meeting that beginning with the seniors, high school seniors of 2029, every Louisiana high school student should graduate with a college credit or a credential or both. Because we're not going to change this reality incrementally. We have to have a bigger vision for who we are in Louisiana and how to address this work. And so we're excited about things like dual enrollment, innovation in work-based learning, new pathways for students, and deep collaboration. So that means that we will come to conferences like this, but we will also be in the regions, and we will be meeting with superintendents and school leaders and business leaders and asking questions about how are we doing and how do we connect pathways so that we're blurring lines between K-12 and higher ed and workforce. And so we know that students are college and career ready in high school because they have meaningful college and career experiences in high school. And so that's what it means when we blur lines and we have deep collaboration in this work. And so we believe that this is a recipe for how to get to our goal by 2030. We also know that there is a return on investment. As state institutions and a state agency, we have a responsibility to articulate what does it mean when you stand in the future in 2030. And as you see from this chart, it's about a $3 billion opportunity for the state in additional revenue, taxes raised, and also savings. So that's what it would mean for us when we get to our goal of doubling the number 60 by 2030 in the state of Louisiana. We also have a responsibility to articulate what is the investment to get to this number. And so we have a public finance study that's underway for us as well so that we can share that information around what is the investment to get to this return so that we can have more people who are, if you will, singing on the same page in the chorus around being champions for education. We think that's important. Lots of people are talking about the master plan, but this was a special one for us. As soon as or shortly after we issued the report, Moody's made a comment or did a short report around the Board of Regents Louisiana strategic plan and basically said it would be credit positive for the state when we reach our goal of increasing educational attainment and erasing equity gaps. So to have a validation from an investment services group that does look at what's happening in the economy is an important validation and opportunity for us to share that widely, that not just we are saying it's important and would make a difference, but Moody's is saying it's important and would make a difference as well. Finally, I will say this. We don't want to just focus on educational attainment and talent development. We want to get there. And we too, as you have a dashboard, we too have a dashboard that will look at how are we doing in terms of our traditional educational measures. We'll look at retention, we'll look at completion, we'll look at equity gaps. Those things are important. But the premise in this master plan, the headline is Louisiana Prospers. So our assumption is not just our colleges and universities will do a great job serving students, but that our state will improve. And so over this year, we will develop a prosperity index, and we will measure how we are doing as a state in terms of less children in poverty, less people incarcerated, or more people making a living wage. And so that work is under development now because we want to make sure that Louisiana is indeed prospering and that we're holding ourselves accountable and shining a bright light on the kinds of things that should move if we are successful or when we are successful in this work. And so that's where we are in this grand vision, in this grand exercise. We are excited about the work, excited about the partnership with this region, delighted that you all are leading the way. You can bet I will be using my megaphone to share this One Acadiana movement with other regions of the state to say, why not you too? Because we can't get there with one strategic plan in one region focused on attainment. It will take all of us. We have to make sure that opportunity exists. Louisiana is an amazing place, and I'm delighted to be back home in a state that I love, doing work that I love. But we cannot be satisfied with where we are. We cannot be satisfied when we know that some people have opportunity and others do not. When we know that this knowledge economy requires so much more from every individual. When we know that a credential is no longer a luxury, but a necessity. And so I'm delighted to join with you today to congratulate you on the work, to sit with you as a partner in moving this work forward. And I can thank you very much for your attendance today and for your passion in making sure that Louisiana prospers and Acadiana prospers as well. Thank you.
Thank you again to Dr. Reed. Your passion for your work shines through and is always inspiring. While Dr. Reed shared with us the education perspective on supporting adult learners, we'll now learn from two business leaders to share with us the business perspective. These business leaders are Mr. Mark Willis of the LHC Group and Mr. Chris Crampy of McLaugh, Inc. First up is Mark Willis, Chief Communications Officer for LHC Group. LHC Group is one of the top 3 largest providers of home health care in the country, and Mark is on the front lines of LHC Group's strategies and partnerships, including its tremendous partnerships with our higher ed institutions. Please welcome Mark to the stage.
Thank you and good morning. I also want to thank certainly Dr. Reed and the Board of Regents for all that you're doing for the state and certainly for the Acadiana region. I'm honored to be here to talk about something that's vitally important, not only to the Acadiana community, but also critically important to our company. Just a moment here. It's all about helping people has been a tagline for the past 20 years for LHC Group, and it takes on an even greater importance as we grow and expand both here locally and throughout the thousands of communities across the country that we're now privileged to be in. Today, it's all about helping more people, more patients, more families, more communities, more hospital partners and physicians, and probably more importantly, more employees who are educated, trained, and prepared to deliver one of the most important services to the most vulnerable of our populations in the most sacred of environments, the home. LHC Group's greatest asset and probably our greatest vulnerability are our employees. What started out as an act of compassion for 4 elderly neighbors and friends at the kitchen table of Keith and Ginger Myers 25 years ago is today one of the leading home health, hospice, and personal care services companies in the country. And we're headquartered right here in Acadiana. We have 32,000 employees. Let me say that again, 32,000 employees across the country, and these are mostly clinicians, RNs, LPNs, physical, occupational, and speech therapists, nurse aides, home care aides, and administrators. And they work from more than 800 agencies in 36 states, and they represent 420 different brands and joint venture partnerships with 350 hospitals and health systems, and certainly one here close to home in Lafayette General. What started as a simple act of caring is today a company with a $4.5 billion market capitalization and plans to double in size in the next 5 to 7 years. In increasing numbers, older Americans are choosing to receive care in the home setting when that option is available. When home health providers are better able to meet the demands of an aging population, both here in Acadiana and across the nation, the quality of life rises for everyone. So that's a macro view. Let's look a little closer to home. So who are we and what are we here in Acadiana, and why is this important? So we own and operate 20 agencies across the 9 parishes, and we employ 850 people in those 20 organizations. These agencies, along with the others across the country, are supported by yet another 700 employees operating at our home office on Hugh Wallace Road and another 4 office locations across Lafayette. So that's a total of 1,550 employees in Acadiana, or roughly 5% of our total workforce. Today, as I stand here, we have 3,000 open positions across the country that we're actively recruiting for. 3,000 positions that we are struggling and challenged to fill. And these include clinicians, sales and support, managerial, IT, and administrative. If you do the math, that equates to approximately 150 open positions here in Acadiana at any given time. So what are we doing here in-home in Acadiana to plan and prepare for our growth and the expanding need for in-home health care? talk a little bit about bricks and mortar first, and then I'll talk about what's really important, which is the people. So from a brick and mortar standpoint, we're expanding our home office footprint to accommodate more employees to support our growing number of agencies and to consolidate into one campus. Last March, we broke ground on a 204,000 square foot expansion next to our existing 66,000 square foot office space. If you look at the larger drawing on the right-hand side, everything to the left of that entranceway is our existing building. That's what stands there now. Everything to the right, the larger part, that is what we're expanding, and there are 72 pieces of wall right now sitting on the ground that will be lifted into place in the next 2 weeks. So it'll be like an instant building overnight, we're told by the Lemoyne Company. So they're great partners, and we're really fortunate to have a company like that headquartered here working with all of us. When completed by the end of this year, we'll have total office space of 270,000 square feet at an investment of $50 million. When completed and consolidated, we'll have space for 1,100 employees and the ability to expand another 2 floors and add space for another 500 newly created jobs over the next 5 to 7 years. So our greatest challenge is not in building or expanding, but in finding, recruiting, and retaining skilled and qualified employees. We believe it's important for our industry and industry leaders like LHC Group to continue supporting efforts to educate future nurses and home health aides on home health skills before they join the workforce. If you're involved or you follow the healthcare industry, you're aware that post-acute care is moving more and more into the home. Patients, physicians, hospitals, insurance companies, and even the federal government are supporting more and better care in the home, where it can be delivered at a total lower cost with better outcomes. But it takes people, and it takes skilled people that are highly skilled and can work independently. And that's where our partnership with our friends at SLCC comes into play. A few years ago, LHC Group was among many organizations that supported the building of SLCC's Health and Science Building. It's an incredible facility with state-of-the-art lecture and labs, operating, birthing, and hospital recovery rooms, all focused on facility-based healthcare delivery and simulation. If you've not had an opportunity to visit and tour the facility, you really should, because it's really a gem, and we're fortunate to have it in the community. 2 years ago, we saw an additional opportunity to do more, and we proposed the idea of creating a home health lab and curriculum where nursing students could train and experience what providing healthcare services in the home is really like. By comparison, there are fewer than a dozen community and four-year colleges around the country that offer anything like this. And we collectively, working with SLCC, Dr. Harder and her team, saw a need and an opportunity. So with a little bit of help and a lot of coordination and heavy lifting by SLCC team, the college opened the first home health lab in August of 2019. And just this past week, I think on Monday when the spring semester started, home health curriculum was developed and introduced for the first time to the nursing students enrolled in this spring semester. And I want to take just a moment to thank Dr. Harder and her team for allowing us to be part of that. In the next few weeks, matter of fact, next week, we'll be meeting with our friends who oversee the UL nursing program and begin talking with them about developing home health curriculum and some programs where we can be involved in the nursing program that exists here at the university. So we're excited about our future and the prospects of helping to create a better trained and skilled workforce for LHC Group and certainly others here in the region. But that's only the beginning. This is a bit of a tease, and I would love to be able to say a lot more here, but I couldn't let today's opportunity go by without at least a little veiled mention. Next month in Baton Rouge, LHC Group and the Myers Family Foundation will be joining Dr. Harder and our partners at SLCC, along with the State Board of Supervisors and other education and government leaders, to announce a major expansion and long-term commitment to creating more education opportunities, more highly trained students, and a stronger workforce. It's the right time to do it, it's the best thing to do, and it's absolutely the right place and the right time to do it. We're excited about our future here in Acadiana. We're committed to helping lift our existing and future workforce today, and we're honored to support One Acadiana in its 55 by 25 initiative. Thank you.
So thank you again to Mark, and thank you for keeping your company here in South Louisiana. So now I'd like to introduce Mr. Chris Crampy. Along with his brother EJ, Chris is the co-owner and operator of McLaugh, Inc. McLaugh is one of the largest McDonald's franchisees in the state, with 20 locations in the Acadiana region and 26 locations in Baton Rouge. McDonald's has had a long-standing commitment to employee education, and McLaugh is proud to be part of that tradition. Please welcome Chris to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. Excuse me. Thank you for having us here today. I'd like to thank Adam and Anna for giving us a few minutes to talk about a program that we are extremely excited about and very proud of called Archways to Opportunity. So about 7 or 8 years ago, McDonald's started down this path of wanting to become the leader in workforce education. And to do that, they chose the vehicle known as Archways. So they wanted to become America's best first job. And so they were going to do that through this program called Archways. So what is Archways? It's been very hard for us to get the word out about Archways, but we've done a pretty good job of it. McDonald's can't really advertise it that much because of joint employer and a few other things, but we're hoping that they get through that and they're able to do that. So Archways is comprised of 4 different parts. It has a counseling advising piece where our employees can call a number and get career path counseling and or educational counseling free of charge by calling a number that's provided to them by us. Second part is English Under the Arches, where our employees that have English challenges, they will set up classes for them to attend so that they can better learn English for promotion or for whatever they would need to further their careers. The third piece is high school diploma. So McDonald's has provided a high school online accredited diploma that our employees can participate in, and they can participate in it at their own pace. They don't have to, it's not a structured curriculum that they have to follow, and that's free to them as well. And then the fourth piece is that we're really excited about is the college tuition assistance part of the Archways program. So crew people are eligible for up to $2,500 towards their college tuition. Managers are allowed up to $3,000 toward their college tuition. Now that is towards any college, community college, or technical college that they choose to go to. But McDonald's has partnered with 4 online colleges that are all accredited that you get an additional discount on if you're a student or an employee of ours and would like to go to those, and they also give you a free laptop. So the programs sound great. Everything sounds good. How do we get this information out to our people? How do we let people know about it? Charlotta and I, we went on a Archways Blitz, if you will, during the summer, and we go around and we were talking to schools, TV, radio, and we were talking to all kinds of people about Archways. In doing that, we came to find out that it was as little as $200 of why people might not go to college or achieve some of their educational goals. So Archways really fit in. So how do we get people to understand that? How do we get people to use that? How do we get people to hire people through this program? So when we went around and did these blitzes, we met with SLCC, and thanks to Dr. Harder and her team, they not only really liked the program and wanted to put us on their website, they said, hey, we want to do a little extra. And that's how Acadiana 1 came to us, hearing about our partnership with SLCC. And they said, hey, we're going to give students that go to SLCC, besides the $3,000 they get from us or the $2,500 they get, an additional $500 a semester. So that's another $1,000. So now, and we already had 31 students enrolled at SLCC. So now our employees can get $3,500 a year towards their education through SLCC, or our managers can get up to $4,000 through SLCC. So that allows them to get a college education and achieve their educational dreams without really being out of pocket hardly any money. So it was really good for us. It's been a great tool for us for recruiting and retention and staffing. And I know some people are saying, well, if these people get educated, they're going to leave McDonald's. Well, if someone, and we've had a few that have, but if someone gets to achieve their educational dreams through us, then that, to me, that's good turnover. And I couldn't be more happy for them. Anytime we have a student that gets a high school diploma or a college tuition or graduates from college, we do a big program for them at one of our monthly manager meetings. We put them in a cap and gown and we do the whole thing. And it's been a big success for us. It's been really good for our recruiting. And by the way, the people that are in the program are better employees for us, and they stay with us longer. So it's just the opposite of what a lot of people thought, that they would just get their education and leave. So it's been really good for us. So I know a lot of people, okay, so it's a great program and we got people in it. What are our results? So for some reason, all of our stores are in the Dallas region. Don't ask me why. But it's a big region. There's over 230 operator organizations in that region, and there's over 1,500 McDonald's locations in that region. We outpace the Dallas region by more than half of Archway's usage and the money that we've given out to Archway students. So to date, we have already given out over $230,000 in Archway's money to our students, and we've had over 115 students in the program. So, thank you. So it's been an incredible program for us. We're going to continue to get the word out. We hope at some point McDonald's will be able to nationally advertise this because it's not, I mean, we like to use it in our organization, but really it's not for our organization, it's for everybody. And it just helps us with our, how we look within our communities and how we treat and educate our employees. So I have some people with me here today. I have our human resource, or our training director, Charlotta Thomas, and Naomi Vasquez, who's one of our general managers. They've both been in the program, and I'd like to ask them up to just give you a brief synopsis of how the program went for them and why they were in the program.
Hello. As you said, I'm Naomi Vasquez. About 4 years ago, I was part of those statistics. I was newly married for the second time. We now have a blended family of 4 children, working full-time, and I had originally 10 years prior started my college education and did not finish. So I had decided at that point with my second husband, I want to go back to school. His first question was, how are we going to afford this? Because at that time, we were living check to check, opening up our own business. I was working, as an assistant at the time. So I said, I'm not sure. We'll just pray about it. So one day, as I'm walking into our crew room, the Archways opportunity sign hit me. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's how we're going to do it. Called my husband, said, hey, guess what? The amount of money that is given to me through this program is what I need for tuition. So I was able to go. I went both years, got my associates, and I'm still, now I can also show my children it's never too late to go back. Mom has finished. I am the first in my family to finish college. So without this program, I don't think it would have been possible.
Hello, my name's Charlotta Thomas, Training Director for McLaughlin Incorporated. My story is similar to Naomi's. I worked at a financial institution about 30 years ago, and that institution was getting ready to cut health care because of a recession. We have them all the time in Louisiana, right? Well, when that bank said, no more health insurance for your family, you'll have to compensate it other ways. So I had to find a second job. And at that time, I was also a newly divorced mom with 3 children. And I wanted health care for my children. They were building a brand new McDonald's in my small community. Went there, asked if they needed a bookkeeper because McDonald's back then had a bookkeeper at every location. And they said, no, ma'am, that job has already been filled. Would you like to apply as a cashier? I'm like, did you hear that I'm a bank officer and you want me to put on a crew uniform and sell Happy Meals, Quarter Pounders, and shakes and fries? And they said, yes, ma'am, that is the only position we have available. I talked to some family and friends, and they're telling me, you're going to quit the bank to go work at McDonald's? So now I ask you, do you think it takes someone smart to work at McDonald's? Let me see a show of hands. Okay, thank you. Yes, it does. Well, guess what? I took a big chunk of humble pie. I swallowed it, put on that crew uniform. Within 6 weeks, became a shift leader. I did work both jobs for 3 years. Got somewhat extended, stretching like a rubber band, like some of you in this audience have probably done. My kids are now getting older. They need me at a lot of school events. So I had to choose one career path. Can you figure out which one I chose? McDonald's. McDonald's. I am so happy that I did. Once I made that commitment, his father, 2 brothers, said, okay, we're going to go ahead and promote you to GM, but this is what you have to do. You have to go to all these classes. Within 8 months, I completed those classes. Got on a plane, went to Chicago, got my degree of hamburgerology to run my own McDonald's location. In fact, if anybody could remember, there was a location right where the Raising Cane's is at Pinhook. There was a McDonald's right there. That was my first location. With that, I guess I was doing such a doggone good job. They said, well, why don't you run 4 stores for us? I'm like, okay. Became a supervisor. But I still had that college education sitting on a shelf, getting dusty. When are you going to get this done? I'm getting there right now. So 30 years later, they introduced the Archways to Opportunity. We had one of our candidates that came to one of our meetings that had graduated with a high school diploma. I got so inspired, I think I was in tears that day because that person was inspired. I then said, well, if I'm going to talk about Archways, I got to be part of the program. Well, Chris said, okay, well, go ahead and do it. Took me 2.5 years. I just graduated this past 2019 in business administration. So, thank you. That was a proud moment. Why? Because it also showed my children you can do it at any age, and that age was 56. And I am, like Naomi, the first to graduate in my family with a high school, with a college degree. So I want to thank the McLaughlin organization, the Crampy organization, for speaking proud and loud about this. And there are brochures at your tables about Archways and also about SLCC partnership. So thank you.
And the only thank you, Charlotta. The only thing so when Archways first came out, we didn't get a lot of people using it, and we didn't get a lot of push behind it because there wasn't a lot of money behind it. You had to work for us for a year, and it was a lot of problems. Now, you only have to work a minimum of 15 hours a week. You have to be employed with us for 90 days. That's why Charlotta and I do the blitzes during the summer, because if they come work for us for the summer, by the time school starts, they're eligible for all the Archways programs. So 90 days, 15 hours a week, and be in good standing. So it just allows us to hire a lot of people in the summer, because then by the time school starts, they're ready to go. So any questions or anything you have about Archways, you can see me after the meeting. I'd be happy to talk about it. But thank you all so much for letting me talk about it today.
Thank you so much, Chris, Naomi, and Charlotta. And, you know, it's easy for us to move on in the program, but I do want to take a moment of personal privilege and just as a community, help you to sort of wrap your arms around what you just heard. So LHC Group, not only building all of that space and hiring all of those folks, but the announcement that Mark alluded to is going to be the largest investment by the private sector in a 2-year institution in our state, ever. So keeping it real. And if you think about McLaugh, what they've done is, regardless of who you are or what you do, you have to work at McLaugh, but there are 3,200 people who now have scholarship dollars sitting right in front of them waiting to be used. That is not a small thing, Chris, so thank you to you and your team. So before we take a quick break to serve lunch, we do have a short video presentation to sort of tie together a lot of the things that you heard this morning, and I'll be back in a minute.
Economic development does not occur unless we invest in education and training.
We have jobs in our region that can't be filled, and we have people that actually are trying to go back to school. That's why even for our state, it's very important that we continue to fund education.
In order for our community to achieve the 55 by 25 goal, it's going to be critical that we have adult learners return to school. You know, we can focus on younger folks and folks that are, you know, in high school, but really we have a number of individuals that are in the workforce that did not complete their degree. Identifying those folks that have some education or some level of training and get them, encouraging them to go back to school is going to be so important for us to achieve this goal.
You have to provide pathways for an employee to continue to excel and continue to move up through the company. Without that, the employee feels as though they've stagnated and they begin looking elsewhere.
I wasn't really doing anything, making $7.25 an hour. And I was like, man, I want to do something different. I want to have a job that's going to give me some security and that I'll be able to go further. But I didn't have the resources nor the money to go to school to do something better.
It doesn't matter what your organization is, whether it's healthcare or any other business. You want your employees to feel engaged and a part of the organization. One way to do that is for them to continue to grow and develop.
Think about the barriers that an adult student returning to school has. Childcare, transportation, I have to work part-time or full-time.
I have a mortgage, I have a 5-year-old daughter, so I'm looking for something that's going to give me the opportunity to get back into work and be able to provide for myself and my family.
You need to have a support team behind you. My job was a very, very great support system for me.
Many employers today pay for students to go back to school, and that is certainly a big plus.
Acadian will offer forgivable loans to cover their tuition and books, and then with a commitment to remain employed with Acadian, Acadian will forgive that tuition over time.
Through the foundation, we offer scholarships to employees. We're very focused on flexible work schedules, and so we allow our employees to go back to school, continue to work part-time or full-time, and obtain that certification or degree.
By promoting education to your employees and supporting an employee's education desires and wants, you have the opportunity to improve retention to improve the expertise of your workforce and improve the employee's job satisfaction.
Learning has to be ongoing. You don't just grow into a job and you can do that job forever. I mean, technology is changing the world, and so we've got to change with it. And so education comes with that.
As we have EMTs and paramedics progress through the ranks and obtain more education, we have a more diverse skill set, providing the care that is expected of us in the communities we serve.
It takes determination. It basically has to come from within. You have to want it. Now, it's going to get hard at times. Like I said, I've had a lot of obstacles, but you can't give up.
There are as many benefits to the company providing education or supporting education for their employees as there are for the employee themselves.
I'm excited when I see a resume that it is an adult learner who returned to school. It shows not only their work ethic that they have, certainly in their career, but also in their own investment in their development.
My dream job is to teach. And with Acadian, at any point in time, if I'm ready, I could teach others how to be a paramedic. I have a plan now.
The company benefits so much more because you have everyone invested in their own success. And when an employee is invested in their success through their company, the company can't help but thrive.
When you look at our community and when you look at the state of Louisiana, we are way behind other areas in the country in educational attainment. And so I think this 55 by 25 initiative is critical for Acadiana as we move forward.
All right. And I'd like to thank those of you in the audience who participated in the video, because I think it really does tie together the need for raising educational attainment, the desire that individuals in our community have to be educated, and then bringing together the business community to make that reality happen. It's just so outstanding. So we're going to take a quick break now to serve lunch before moving on to the next segment of our program. We've given you 10 minutes, so all 160 of you have to go out that door and be back in 10 minutes. But if you could just do it as quickly as possible so we can move on to our next speaker and stay on time, that would be great. So thank you very much.
All right, so we could get your attention, please, for our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dakota Paulicki. He's a strategy officer for the community mobilization at Lumina Foundation. Lumina Foundation's mission is to expand student access to and success in education beyond high school. Their national goal is to increase the proportion of Americans with postsecondary credentials to 60% by 2025. Dakota serves on the front lines of this work, supporting community partners around the country on educational attainment initiatives like 55 by 25. He also leads Lumina Foundation's podcast, Today's Students, Tomorrow's Talent, which is an appropriate theme for today's event. Dakota will offer his perspective on why initiatives like 55 by 25 and our focus on adult learners are so critical to our future as a region, state, and country. Please welcome Dakota to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am honored to be your lunchtime entertainment. It is always a fun position. Thank you again for allowing me to join you today, all the way from Indianapolis. I have to say, I was really excited. Oh, thank you. Someone from India in the house. I'm actually from Chicago, so I still have an identity crisis. There it is. There it is. Okay. I was really excited, though, because I thought, gosh, it's going to be nice to kind of fly south during the winter. And sure enough, 70 degrees last night was wonderful, but I left like 60 degrees, so what are we doing nowadays? Yeah, it's a real pleasure to be here and at such a critical time for all of you. I've been following from a distance the great work that you all have been working on together in partnership, and like was mentioned by Jim, that's really my focus is working together and helping people find the ways to produce cross-sector partnership to promote post-secondary attainment in particular. I'm going to go a little quickly since I know we're a little bit behind on some things, and I really want to get to some of the stories and some of the things that other people around the country are doing very much akin to what you all are about to embark on. As was mentioned, Lumina Foundation, we're a private foundation based in Indianapolis. We're the nation's largest foundation exclusively focused on learning and training after high school. And we're also pretty known for having a big, thorny, audacious goal of that 60% of Americans will have some kind of high-quality post-secondary credential by 2025. We're encouraged because when this goal was created, Lumina was one of the only people who had this goal. We're now at a spot now where actually we don't really talk about it all that much because over 40 states have goals, hundreds of communities are on goals, and I'm just so excited that your community is the first in Louisiana to have one of these goals. It's a really important step on the journey to really boosting post-secondary attainment, so you should all be very proud about that. We say a couple things here. One, the credential matters. We're not just talking about degrees, associates and bachelors. Though those are important, and there should always be pathways that lead to those kinds of degrees, we know that there are many other valuable credentials, certificates, licenses, etc., that make a difference in people's lives. The second part is the word high quality. Lumina defines high quality as meeting two criteria. One, that it actually has kind of a livable wage, that you can make a living off of it and do all the things that as Americans we want to do. Some talk about it as a pathway to the middle class. The second is that it has to be connected to further learning. There are too many credentials out there. There are hundreds of thousands of credentials out there, many of which don't actually connect to the next stage in life. So we end up putting people on these pathways and abandon them only to have them have to return for new education, new training. So it's about that kind of alignment as well to really be defined as high quality. I'm really happy to say that we're actually within striking distance, and luckily this has already been kind of talked about a little bit, but nationally we've grown about nearly 10 percentage points since 2008 in post-secondary attainment, which is really exciting. And while that growth might feel slow, it's important to know that when you're talking about this level, 1 percentage point literally means millions and millions more people and families that are earning the kind of education they need to be successful. If we continue as business as usual as a nation, we're only going to get so far. We'll end up being about 8 percentage points short of reaching our goal. And so really what we're doing now, it's kind of scary now that we're in 2020 because we have 5 years left. And so how do we close those 8 percentage points in those 5 years? Well, it's by working with all of you to take really bold action in pursuit of our students. We also know that there's a lot of reasons to focus on post-secondary attainment. And I got to say, it's refreshing being in a room where I don't have to convince people that education is important. That's a lot of what I end up doing. And so it's like, did you know that the more educated you are, the better health outcomes you are? You're less likely to be divorced. You're actually statistically happier as a person when you're more educated, which is fascinating. But for the purposes of this conversation, and we've referenced Georgetown a little bit, I think this is timely. Post-recession, out of the 11.6 million jobs that were created, 99% of those jobs went to people with post-secondary education. So the way I looked at it is this, is that if you have a high school diploma or less, the recession has never ended for you. And as you all have alluded to here regionally, and it's certainly true nationally, those jobs are not coming back, which is actually a tricky narrative right now to talk about, considering we have record low unemployment. So a lot of people aren't making that disconnect. One of the best ways that we've been talking about this, though, is to make it recession-proof. Because we know that no matter what these great times that we might have experiencing right now in terms of jobs and employment will not stay forever. And so post-secondary attainment is one of the ways, post-secondary education is one of the ways that we actually have to ensure against a future recession and make sure that people still have an opportunity to be employed at its fullest extent. We also know, though, that those that are not included here are also disproportionately people of color as well. I think there's a lot of really great data from Dr. Reed as well about the funnel, which is always alarming every time you see one of those funnels. And certainly we see the same thing. When I look at this, though, to me this represents actually, this is what our system is built to do. The fact is we are getting the outcomes that our current education and workforce system is designed to produce, which is a little scary. And I think that's why we're all in this room today, because we've accepted that. We know that, and now we're saying that's unacceptable. It is time to actually change the system. So when we actually change the system, that's pretty hard to do, and that's where we get together. No one sector can actually tackle this challenge alone. We can't simply rely on education institutions, high school, or college or community college, technical colleges to solve this issue. Nor can we rely entirely on state government agencies or business or the social sector. It actually takes everyone together, working together towards common goals and on concentrated strategies. And so some of the examples I'm going to have with you today talk about those places that have done that very, very well. Those places that might be 1 or 2 or 3 steps ahead of all the wonderful work that you're doing, so I can paint for you what a future, a very bright future that you have in terms of working together in this collaborative way. The population we're going to focus on, though, is this very large adult population that has some college experience but has yet to earn a credential. And if we look at the graduation rates of institutions, we know that many institutions end up serving more students who they don't end up graduating. We actually feed this pipeline nationally much more than we should. And so the conversation is about how do we stop doing that? How do we get more students to graduate once they enter? As well as how do we re-invite people who are currently out there with a lot of experience, a lot of work experience, but also a lot of college experience and some college credit to get back into the system. These numbers are a little old. This is actually from our old strategic plan. And so the deadline for this was 2020. And you'll see that in order for us to stay on track to reach goal 2025, we had projected that we would need 6.1 million new credentials from people who had some college experience but not their first credential. We're updating this. I have no clue where we're at. I have a feeling we didn't hit it, though, just because that's how these goals go, right? But I think we can. And I also just want to point this out because that's also the largest group. We know that if we just focus on the traditional pipeline of students, that is important, but that's actually not going to reach us to our goals. It's not going to reach those job predictions that Georgetown has been providing us all. And same thing with adults that have never experienced post-secondary education before. We have the most opportunity with these students who have some college degree, some college experience, but have not yet earned a degree. And what I'm excited, though, well, actually, real quick, this is astonishing for me as well, is that over the past 20 years, we've actually been feeding this pipeline. 31 million students have enrolled in college and left without a degree. So the opportunity is huge. Now, the thing is that a lot of people like to refer to these students as low-hanging fruit. I get it, it's fun, but I kind of disagree, as we've even heard from some of our speakers today, that I don't really classify them as low-hanging, but the fact is that it just reflects that we don't actually know a whole lot about this population. And my favorite response is someone who's on the grant-making side now of things, is when we get a proposal from somebody that says, listen, here's our plan. We're going to go out and we're going to send emails to all the people who left our institution, and they're going to come back and enroll. Listen, that's a great step one, but put yourself in their shoes for a moment, right? You left your institution 5 years ago, 2 years ago. You're not feeling real great about it. Maybe you still have some student debt. You get an email in your inbox. Are you even going to open it up? Maybe you do. You open it up, right? And then it says, come back. What's changed? Nothing has changed. This is just an outreach. And so we need to learn more about what this population actually is, what they need, why they stopped out. Luckily, we just launched this report in December of 2019, fresh off the presses, with Gallup. And Gallup did a pretty large phone interview survey with 340,000 people across the United States, of which 42,000, a little over, were people that were adult age, that had some college experience, but have yet to earn a degree. And so I want to just share a little bit about what some of these findings are. First is why students actually stop out. We hear a lot, and we even talked today about the importance of affordability, and that is absolutely true. That is a key component, but it is not a component alone. And this reflects the complexity, the true complexity of people's lives and decision making. The main reason people end up leaving is actually because of this tension between affordability and time. It's the balancing act. And it might be time because I have to work full time in order for me to continue to be a good father or mother. It might be because I have other family relying on me, or because I just need to afford the bills, and I can't just balance both the time. It doesn't even, cost of college might not even come into play. play. I might be able to afford the college physically, but not in my time-wise. And same the other way around. And so there's this really tension between this idea of time and money. There's also this notion of family. Nashville, Tennessee did a listening tour in several of their neighborhoods that they were targeting for this particular purpose. And they said, tell us a little bit about what are some of the things that prevent you from coming back. And a lot of people said, well, I have family commitments, I have children of my own. And they said, oh, okay, so access to affordable daycare. And the people were like, wait, no, that's not what I said. It's not that I don't have daycare. It's that I'm not willing to miss time with my children. I don't want to have to spend every single night and not be able to tuck my kids into bed. I don't want to have to prioritize and miss the things, about missing potential school events and as kids are getting older. And so we have to find some solutions that actually match the complexity of their lives. And certainly you'll see this kind of pulling out of the data, the actual respondents, what they said. Work-related issues were number one on their list of the reasons why they had actually stopped out. They felt like they needed to perform in their job first and then college second. And so if you have to cut one of those two things, am I going to cut the thing that's keeping me alive, my bread and butter, or this thing that I'm maybe selfishly doing for myself, which is oftentimes the way they perceive it? Also, I just want to note out financial pressure, because I think this is important. It's not just about the affordability of college, it is the collective financial pressure that students and families feel as a result of that. And so that's another area where we as a system, where the private, public, and social sectors all have to come together, because there's cost that affects parents and students and families all around that. And so there's really great work around how do we better provide public assistance for those who are already eligible? How do we advise and make sure they're taking advantage of every single dollar that they have available to them? How do we as employers make it a little bit easier, address that time issue? The second thing here, though, the second major finding is that most students are really interested in what the actual benefit is. So if we say, we know now why you stopped out, what is the reason? Would you actually come back? And the first thing they say is, well, what's the benefit for me? Why would I have to come back? I don't want to have to just go to college. It's not what I'm actually interested in doing. And also, I want to know where I'm heading, right? And how this ends up getting translated is that there has to be a clear outcome related to employment, related to their job, related to their daily lives, for them to actually consider wanting to go back, right? The long-term investment of saying, listen, if you get this degree, 10, 15 years from now, if your job gets disrupted by automation, you're going to be okay to pivot, is a really hard thing when I'm thinking about my day-to-day. I mean, heck, even for people who aren't going to paycheck to paycheck, we don't have that kind of patience. Social science tells us that we can't plan further than 5 years out in our minds cognitively. We can't trust more than 9 people at one point in time. So we can't place these strange expectations on students to try to get them to come back. There has to be a clear outcome as it relates to wanting to have them come back. Most are saying, listen, I don't need it, or I'm not interested, about 1 in 5 right now. And that's particularly true right now because we have such low unemployment. A lot of people on this survey said, listen, I'm fine in my job. I have a good job. I have health care benefits. I'm making decent money. I'm good. Why would I go back? The second, though, work-related is, again, kind of tied into that. But then too expensive and no time, you'll see, are very, very close to each other again. Those two issues of time and money are actually horribly connected and correlated. And so we need to find better ways to actually address both the time and money component as one issue, not as two separate issues. And then finally, we asked them, okay, let's assume that there is a clear benefit to working. Are you likely to come back? And one of the things that most people will say immediately is, why would I go back to the place that failed me in the first place? Or another way to put it, probably the more internal kind of quiet thought in your head, is why would I go back to the place that I failed from? I'm embarrassed. And particularly around advising. The same survey, we didn't put it in here, but over half of students that were surveyed as part of this, these people who have some college but no degree yet, over half have reported that they had poor to fair advising, both on career and academic advising. And it actually fares worse for those who attended 4-year versus 2-year institutions. And so if I don't trust, if I feel like I failed, or perhaps I feel like an institution or an organization has failed me, am I going to walk into that same campus? Can I even step foot? And if I do, am I going to go to the same advisor? That's hard. That's hard to do on a human level. And so when we look at where they're saying, yes, for those who said, yeah, I am likely to enroll within the next 5 years, universally across all ages, we see that they are more interested in working on their education through their employer. Now, they're responding as saying, if our employer offered education and credentialing, we would go immediately and take part of it. However, I would also nuance this to say that even if the employer is not the provider, but if it's employer supported in a very real and tangible way, that they would also be likely to go ahead and re-enroll. The same is true, though, for, I'll just say real quickly in case you didn't catch it, the younger age group, though, is more likely to want to enroll in community colleges, which is of note, if you kind of notice that trend line there. When we break it out by race, we see the same thing, this preference for wanting to go and pursue your education through your employer. Although I am really encouraged that our Black and Hispanic students are just generally more interested and more likely. That's really great news and actually matches the kind of enrollment trends that we've been seeing as well, which is quite exciting. Where this gets even more interesting, though, is when you break it out by industry. So of the survey respondents, these are the top 10 occupational fields that they were in. And just a couple of notes. First, healthcare. And I didn't even know you guys were here, so this is perfect. Like you guys are so healthcare oriented. Perfect. Healthcare, above all, is saying that they would prefer to have it be employer-led, right? And this actually matches a lot of the conversations that we've had with people who are trying to juggle being in the healthcare industry, particularly frontline employees of the healthcare industry, where the job and time is demanding. It just is. And so to try to squeeze in education somewhere that is not offered at my employer or not supported by my employer by some flexible scheduling issues, right? That's a real challenge. And so I was happy on that video that you all are doing some of that flexible scheduling, that structured schedule. That's really critical. We also, I want to point out food preparation, because I think this one's interesting too. Jobs for the Future came out with a report not that long ago that categorized jobs into 3 categories. They call them static jobs, those that aren't necessarily leading to a career and don't have future opportunity, those that are springboard jobs that can really accelerate you into a career, and those lifetime jobs that you can get in and kind of work your way all the way through up. Food preparation, food services is considered one of those static jobs by Jobs for the Future. And so when I see that they are, yes, interested in employer-supported and employer-provided training, they're also interested in community college training, because that might suggest that they're interested in having a career. They want to know what's coming. They want to have a pathway forward. And so it's pretty fascinating once you start looking at this to see what we can actually do. And so again, the 3 main takeaways of all this survey are this. One is that these students, these adults that have some college experience but no degree yet, they want to have a clear benefit. If they're going to come back, they want to know exactly what they're going to get in return for it. 2, they need something that is affordable, and they need something, 3, that works with their actual lives, something on a short basis. And so who is leading the way in all this? I want to just briefly touch on 3 exciting places that I think are doing really well. One is in Columbus, Indiana, one is in Detroit, and one is the North State of California. So I'm going to fly through this first part here, but similarly, Columbus, Indiana has brought together all their stakeholders. They've been at this for a long time, since about 2007, 2008. And again, this is tiny, you're not supposed to read this. But they have brought together the public, the private, and the social sectors. All like this, all coming together, all setting goals, and then all taking concentrated action. And in fact, they have sub-networks now, because they have been doing this so long. They have networks that are designed for Latino student success, adult student success, as well as around industry clusters, advanced manufacturing, healthcare, and other emerging markets. And together, this is one of the things that they did. Again, I didn't know that you were ready to do your eye test today. Everyone ready? So this is a quick screenshot, and I'm happy to share this with anyone who's interested, but they call this the Powerhouse Credential Crosswalk. And what this is on the left-hand side here, you actually have all your major industries. So they highlighted all the industries that are growth industries as well as stable industries in their region. And they said, okay, what are the credentials and competencies required to make someone successful in that particular industry? And then as you work your way right, you're working your way through the education pipeline. So here you might see these are the kind of education offerings that we can have, and is it available in the region? These are offered by your community providers. They're offered by your unions, your Work One centers, your workforce agencies, sometimes the employers themselves. Then, is it actually offered in the region? And then what are the associated skills? At the green line, you move into degrees. You move into higher education institutions. And so their 2-year institution says, okay, now all of those things, that actually counts for this many credits. This, whatever this is, I can't read it from here, but we're 7.5 credits right? And then as I move forward through a certificate and a technical certificate, a total of 30 credits, I can get a stackable credential that moves into my associate's, that eventually moves into my bachelor's degree. Now this tool does a couple things. One, for advising. Every single person in the community has this. So if you're an employer and you're in an HR department and you have someone that says, listen, I want to be a pathway to get to here, and you want to be able to answer that person's question right there. Here it is. This is the simple solution. And also, by the way, it's not an app. It's not there's no AI behind this. It's literally an Excel spreadsheet. And that's awesome because it's very low tech and everyone can use it. The other thing it does, as in addition to an advising tool, is they were able to do a gap analysis, right? Because they are dealing with about a 9-county region across rural Indiana. And so they said, gosh, you know what? We noticed that there's absolutely no one providing the kind of training that we need in this particular region. How do we make sure now that we can adjust that? Or they found instances where people were commuting 2 or 3 counties over just to get the education they needed. Whereas that actual county that they're from needs really the kind of work that they need to do. This simple tool of mapping can actually be very profound. They've actually adjusted quite a bit and enrollment has gone up. The second thing they've done is really restructure the way tuition reimbursement programs. Many of their employers in their community offer tuition reimbursement, and it's through this traditional way. The student registers for class, they fork down the couple $1,000s, they take the course, and then 6 to 7 months later, they submit a reimbursement. That is designed for people who are graduate level education, right? Because that's what tuition reimbursement programs were originally designed as an incentive for. So what they said is like, you know what, we got to figure this out. Instead, they entered into a direct relationship. The employer and the institution, their Ivy Tech Community College, entered into a direct relationship. And so now the student goes, they register, they complete the course, and they never see a bill. And if that student completes the course successfully according to the company's policy, the company direct pays Ivy Tech. The student will never see a bill. Enrollment has jumped through the roof, and enrollment among people who are frontline staff has jumped through the roof because they're the ones without the dispensable income that can fork over and last 7 or 8 months without $4,000 or $5,000 of tuition waiting. It's a relatively simple fix that they've been tackling one employer by one employer, and has been pretty profound. The only thing I'm just going to add real quick is that they've been at this so long that they've actually had population level metrics, right? And I won't go through all of these, but it is important to note that the path that you are on will actually see results in the broad sense. They had a massive increase in bachelor's degree attainment. Their population increased. Unemployment, of course, fell, and household median income. And you might be looking at this and saying, well, how much talent do they import? Not that much. That's what's kind of nice about this. Most of this is through regeneration and the cultivation of incumbent talent and workforce. In Detroit, Detroit has a pretty expansive partnership with a number of their higher institutions led by the Detroit Regional Chamber and a number of social organizations that are part of it. And they're all focused on the 639,000 people in the Detroit region that have some college and no degree. As a partnership, they've done a number of things. They strengthened the pathways to reduce the swirl between 2-year and 4-year institutions. They have a common referral system, and so now anybody can just submit a request for advising, and they have agnostic advisors that are not institutionally specific, that are not pushing a particular institution, that are there to serve the student, help them provide advising. They've even reworked city bus routes, and I add this in here because sometimes that's what you got to do. There was a student, a guy I met, who couldn't make it to work on time because the earliest bus that was out front of his employer didn't get there until 20 minutes after. It was literally impossible if you're relying on public transportation to get to work. And so instead they reworked the bus route so not only people from certain neighborhoods could actually get to work, but then that same bus route can also take them to their institution. And so their higher ed institution like Wayne State University is becoming a transportation hub for the community because when you look at our transportation patterns, oftentimes they're not towards our truest community assets in that way. But the other bold thing that they did that I want to mention is Dawn Medley, who runs their enrollment management at Wayne State University, one day was driving into work. And she was hearing an NPR story about how Detroit started forgiving parking tickets because they had all these people with parking tickets, like I did in college, and they weren't getting paid. And so Detroit said, all right, listen, folks, this is getting out of hand. We're going to waive a portion of your parking ticket debt if you come and pay a little bit. And she said, why aren't we doing that for the debt that students owe us? And she went to her office and she ran the math. And she looked at the 100% of the students who are currently in collections. If 100% of the students at her institution paid in the collections, they would have net $1.2 million. If, however, all that debt was forgiven and all the students came back and actually re-enrolled and completed, they would net $12.5 million. And so they took this and ran with it. And they created a program called Warrior Way Back. And I'll just add real quickly here that this is, Wayne State has done this, but so has Henry Ford, Oakland University, Muskegon County College, all of the colleges in the region. They have now a Detroit kind of area debt forgiveness compact. This program has been replicated across the state of Missouri, in Iowa, Ohio, Florida, Indiana, so it's catching fire. And what they do is that one is they say a lot of the students who are in the some college group but have yet to earn a degree, they actually still have a lot of federal financial aid available to them. You might have left after 3 years and you still have some time in that clock. The problem is that that money can't apply to your prior bill. And so you're prevented from coming back because you might owe $500 because you didn't pay some parking tickets, young Dakota, right? That would have been me, right? And so instead what they said is like, if we eliminate some of that debt, they can still use the advanced financial aid. There's money out there to be had. Second, they're no longer holding transcripts hostage, which is critical. We need to end that practice altogether. And so as a group of institutions in the Detroit region, they said, we are no longer going to prevent a student from accessing their transcript, even if they owe us money, because we want them to be able to continue on their education pathway. And so very briefly, the program eligibility, every program is set up slightly different across these institutions. You have to have a GPA of 2.0, you have to owe $1,500 or less, because that's how much they're going to forgive over the course of a certain time per amount. You have to have a FAFSA on file. Admitted students, once you're admitted, you have to maintain in good academic standing, continue on your progress, participate in special advising, and of course meet all your account balances and all that. The early results, within the first term of launching this, the institution had an ROI of $300,000 in the first term, and that's about 50 students that went through this program. 55% of the students were actually in their final year of college. So when they came back, that meant they only had 2, 3, 4 courses left to actually finish. I talked to one gentleman, Jonathan. He had left Wayne State University. He had owed, right, exactly $1,500. He hadn't been back for 25 years. Still hadn't had his bachelor's degree. He came back, he took 4 courses in 1 term, not advisable for someone who's working full-time, but he did it, and he has his bachelor's degree. It's just that simple. There's a lot of those stories that were in that first kind of cohort, and they've been growing and growing since then. The other thing I'm just going to add to this, which has been really shocked, I think, Wayne State, there are a lot of students who came to them who might have owed $5,000, $7,000, and they paid down their debt to get to that $1,500 threshold and then used the $1,500 forgiveness. And so when the institution said, well, wait a minute, you've been in collections now for years. Why haven't you just been paying your debt? They said, why would I? What am I going to get out of you? So I pay my debt to you and then I get nothing in return. It's not like I was waiting for my degree that you might have owed me. I haven't earned it yet, right? And you might be thinking to yourself, well, what about your credit score, young man? Maybe they don't care about it. I mean, so not everyone cares about your credit score. So all that to say that this is a very logical, simple solution that institutions have been taking on. And if you're interested, we actually helped the Institute for Higher Education Policy build a re-engagement calculator. You can pop on your phone right now. If you type on Google re-engagement calculator IHEP, this is going to pop up, and you can actually fudge with all the numbers, figure out how many students have academic holds, financial holds, and figure out what your institution might actually generate in terms of an ROI. Makes a lot of sense. Employers, there are employers around the country now who are also incentivizing this, by the way. So if the higher institution says, hey, we will do up to $1,500, an employer will say, great, I'll kick in an extra $5,000, I'll kick in an extra $1,000, whatever it takes, to make sure that those students are getting back in. So there's still an opportunity for robust partnership. The last example I'm going to give you real quick comes a little bit in joke form from Victoria here, who once said, I once taught an 8 a.m. class. So many grandparents died that semester. I then moved my class to 3 p.m. No more deaths. And that, my friends, is how I save lives. Because we know structured schedules matter. People have to predict their time, and no one likes 8 a.m. classes. And so how do you expect to recruit a student who is an adult with a working family if you're offering classes at times that don't work for them? Up in Northern California, it's an incredibly rural part of the world. Some people are 3 hours away from their local college or institution. They had to figure this out. And so they created 2 programs, ACE and BOLD. They're accelerated associates and bachelor's degrees programs using hybrid online and in-person instruction. But it is a predictable schedule. No matter what, no matter if you take 6 years to get through this whole thing, if you did ACE and then move into BOLD, every single class will be on a Tuesday or Thursday. And what that means is that all their employer partners are then able to plan around it. They're much more willing to say, hey, no problem, you can take off a little bit early because I know it takes you an hour and a half to get to campus. Go ahead, not a problem. Similarly, because of this structure, they're actually providing the education outside the college. The college has gone to the employer to provide the instruction when possible and when needed, because that's what it's going to take to reach these kind of folks. And in short, they've had a 90% course success rate in comparison to the students, to the institutional overall 70%, right? Structured schedules plus all these extra supports. What I want to say is that even though these are little individual interventions, they are not done in isolation. What all these things have in common are rooms like this. They also get together annually. They also get together in work teams. They come together as the private, public, and social sectors to figure out what they can be doing together. Because the social problem is not just one thing. It's actually a series of interconnected and interrelated problems that all have an interaction with it. And we can get super nerdy about the Cynefin framework if everyone's into that, but we'll move on. What we need to get past is this blame game. And I'm really delighted that you all are a little bit past the blame game. Although the earlier superintendent's meeting was funny because they were like talking about historic grudges that your lovely superintendents no longer hold, which is great to hear, because we fall into this so often. We're so willing to point the blame down the pipeline. The fact is that collectively as a system, we have failed 31 million people over the past 20 years in this nation. We need to figure out a way to stop that, and we need to figure out a way to welcome them back in. It needs to be relevant, it needs to be affordable, and it needs to work with their lives. The other thing I want to leave you with is this. You are not alone. This is our network. This is the Lumina Community Network that I get a chance to work with. And all of these dots and stars and things are people that are doing exactly what you're doing, trying to come together to work together as a broad partnership to address these particular challenges around post-secondary attainment. And this work can feel very lonely, which is why half my job title, I think, is therapist to community organizers sometimes. It can feel very lonely, but you're not alone. There are a lot of places to learn from, to model from, and I also just want to say you're really leading on a number of these places as well. It's been really wonderful to be able to watch the kind of progress that you've all made in such a short amount of time. And so with that, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be here today, and if ever I can be of service or Lumina, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Dakota. That really was inspiring. Can we give him another round of applause? So at this point, you have heard the education perspective, the business perspective, and some national perspective on the critical importance of our 55 by 25 goal and supporting adult learners, our focus through our 55 by 25 efforts for this year. You have also heard about some of the work we will be undertaking in 2020, and now we'll go just a little bit more into detail. On this slide, you can see 3 of the 4 key strategies we will be undertaking. The first is supporting Dr. Reed and our state partners on the National Governors Association Educate for Opportunity grant. And as Dr. Reed shared, this grant work will be focused on coordinating state services to help adult learners navigate barriers they may face when returning to school, including food insecurity, housing insecurity, and access to transportation.
The second is coordinating regional involvement in the Degrees When Due initiative to re-enroll adult students and confer associate degrees through reverse transfer. Reverse transfer is a process for awarding associate degrees to students who have transferred to a 4-year institution in pursuit of a bachelor's degree before completing the requirements for an associate degree. Many of these students earn enough credits for an associate degree but never receive the award after leaving the 2-year institution. Through shared data agreements and coordination of enrollment information across institutions, for example, between SLCC and UL Lafayette, we can award these students with the associate's degree they've earned and deserve.
Our third key strategy is continuing to promote the University of Louisiana System's Compete Louisiana initiative. Compete Louisiana offers adults with some college but no degree the support to return to school and complete their degree or credential. UL System President Dr. Jim Henderson joined One Acadiana in August last year to launch Compete Louisiana, and in the week following this event, more than 400 people inquired about participation in the program.
Our fourth key strategy for 2020 also focuses on adult learners and involves a special call to action for employers. To tell us more about this initiative called Bridging the Talent Gap, we are pleased to be joined by Kathy Zandoza of the Graduate Network. The Graduate Network is a national movement to increase adult college completion and Kathy serves as the Senior Vice President of Network Engagement. Kathy also has extensive experience working with economic development organizations and chambers of commerce, having served as Greater Louisville, Inc.'s Vice President of Education and Workforce Development. Please welcome Kathy to the stage.
Good afternoon. Thank you all so very much. I think I've been smiling all morning. My mouth might start hurting because of hearing all the wonderful things that you have happening already in your community. Just makes me feel really good. The Graduate Network is a national network working with communities across the country, as you can see by our map, helping them do exactly what's happening right here in your community, bringing together leaders, business leaders, social leaders, community-based organizations, higher education, K through 12, to sit down and come up with a common goal and then make that plan to achieve that common goal. One of the things that's unique about the Graduate Network is the fact that we realize for adults to return, it's not easy. We've heard the data from Dakota. We've heard the testimonials from our folks that were here earlier talking about making that movement to go ahead and do it. And so we're there to help that adult, identify them, and then work with them through a very positive, appreciative advising methodology that allows the adult to regain their vision and their mission for themselves so that they can go back and complete school. We've been doing this for the past 15 years, and we have data from over 30,000 adults who have thought about and are going back to school. And all of the data that Dakota pointed out along the lines of time, finances, and doing it for my family is all true. What we and what you have to do as a community is think about that, now put in place the mechanism that take those barriers away and help the adults return, because it's all about that will create economic prosperity for the individual and for your community, which is so very important. So that's my spiel on the Graduate Network, but I'm really here to talk to you about bridging the talent gap. And you have been selected as a community, one of now 20 communities across the country that will be engaging in an employer-employee survey. And this survey to the employers, where the goal is 250 employers to complete the survey, and then that's going to give you data that will be displayed on a data dashboard. Yes, this is the third dashboard that you all have heard about today, but your data dashboard will be able to provide you landscapes of what your businesses in your community are saying about their future growth. Are they growing? Will they need more employees? Are they finding the talent that they need with the employee pool that they have? In other talent need, where do they see the biggest gains? Is it an individual with an associate degree that's a positive employer that's really employee that's going to make a difference? Bachelor's, high-quality credentials? And then finally, it asks a question, are you working with any of your local education providers to help build out your employee base and actually grow your own collectively? And the answer, that's one piece of the data we have nationally that says, you know, that's a really good idea. I would be interested in doing that, but guess what? I'm not. So we know that 85% said they'd be interested. They're not doing it. 70% said they would do it if they were reached out to partner. So this is going to be a great opportunity once 250 surveys are completed and your data dashboard is up, that you can sit down collectively as a community to say, okay, what do we see? What does this mean? And what are we going to do next? Okay, so everybody at your table, you have one of these little cards. Everybody must pull it out and hold it up high. I need to see this. This is the last activity. Actually, it's the only activity you had to do all day. Maybe you should stand up with it. So pull this out. There is a website that you're going to go to. We have a goal of 250 employer surveys to be completed, okay? I did my math. I'm not that great at it, but I had my calculator. If all 160 people in this room complete the survey, we will be, by Monday, because you're going to do it over the weekend, we will have 64% of our goal met. So that's my challenge to you. Let's get out there, get the survey up. It's up on your phone. Go back to your computers, your laptops. Spend some time over the weekend. Think about these questions. Answer them. Complete it, and then hit the submit button. And that's going to make everybody here very happy, and that means your data will be available sooner. So we got it open for 6 weeks. I will assure you, this is how it works. If you don't do it and get your friends and neighbors in business and industry to do this, you will hear from the One Acadiana people weekly for about 4 weeks, daily for about 5 days, and then twice a day at the last 6 weeks. So we're serious about this, because if in fact you actually achieve the goal of 250 more businesses or more, you will be the #1 community in the country exceeding the goal. So I know you're competitive. I know you want to be the best of the best. So that's my challenge to you. I will come back if you succeed, and we'll help throw the party. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy. Another round of applause.
Okay. Achieving success on our 55 by 25 goal will not be possible without all of us coming together through a shared commitment. With your collective leadership and support, we know we can reach this ambitious target. Once again, we thank you to today's supporting sponsors, Lafayette General Health and Slemco. We want to thank AOC Community Media for covering today's event, and the folks at UL and the Student Union for being our generous hosts. And also thank you to all of the business leaders, education leaders, nonprofit leaders, and public officials who joined us here today. The growth in participation in our second summit just is, I think, an important indicator to us that we all recognize across Acadiana that we have got to fix this issue. We have got to address this crisis, and as was talked about earlier, our individual organizations, our companies, us individually as people, we cannot do it together. We have got to stay together and stay focused. I also want to thank Andre, Anna, and the One Acadiana staff. Just tremendous leadership and support, and Anna is all about the data. So if you ever have a data question, you could ask Anna. So thank you all for coming today. We have one last activity.
So the fun part, a group photo. If you would all please play along with us. If you look out to Andre and Anna, they're going to guide you out to the stairway by the entrance. It'll be our final activity of the day, and the event will adjourn after that. But showing everybody together, I think, is important. So if you would all do us a favor and walk out following Andre and Anna, we'd be very appreciative. Thank you.